This is episode 98 of the Beyond the Food Show, and today we're going to be talking about why diet don't work and why we all need collectively to ditch the diet. My name is Stephanie Dozier. I'm a clinical nutritionist, and at 35, I was trapped with severe anxiety, panic attack, and obesity, and my health completely collapsed. I needed solution, and the journey began. Each episode of the Beyond the Food Show, we bring you an expert or a message to help you achieve your health goal, unlock your self-confidence, and live a better life. This episode of the Beyond the Food Show is brought to you by my newest baby, the Going to Beyond the Food Project, an online health conference that is focused on teaching you how to ditch the diet mindset, transform your relationship to food, and feel better for good. I handpicked 21 colleagues, health experts, MDs, NDs, psychologists to help you think and live outside the diet and weight loss dogma box, and they will help you transform your life with a radical new way of looking at health and weight loss and help you heal your distorted relationship to food. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why we all need to ditch the diet. And I have 21 reasons for you to think differently about diet. I mean, the stats are clear. 91% of women are unhappy with their weight and they resort to dieting. But here's the kicker. 95% of the dieter will regain their weight within 1 to 5 years. Why? 43% of people eat to regulate their emotion. So now we think that putting a diet restriction, putting a framework, giving a meal plan is going to magically make emotional eating for one reason go away? What if food, gut, calorie, and macro weren't the answer to all our weight problems? What about if that framework, discipline, motivation, and mental strength weren't the reason why we're not achieving our goal? What if there was more to our craving than sugar and carbohydrate addiction? What if this dieting mindset, dieting plan weren't the answer? I mean, we're spending $60 billion a year for the last 3 years now. It's been the rate at which we're spending on weight loss. I mean, if it worked, why would we still be looking for the next best thing? Why would it be, if it worked, that the population that is overweight, we know that the BMI is not great, but just look at the stat. 13% of the population was quote unquote overweight in 1970, and now it's 35% in 2012 and still climbing. I mean, if it worked, those numbers weren't there. So what do we need to do if the diet doesn't work, right? We need to look at our weight. I don't want to say issue, but this weight bubble and our relationship to food in a completely different manner. And here's 21 ways into which you can look at this, or 21 reasons why diet don't work. You pick your choice into which angle you're looking at it, either from the positive stand or from the negative stand. So let's look at it. Number one, the diet mindset. When we are stuck in that place that the only thing that will ever work is diet, then for sure we're set for failure. Number two, ladies, the superwoman syndrome. That place where we all are right now thinking we can do everything for everybody else, but there's no time left for us. What about reason number three, gut health? What about if the little bacteria we had in our intestine were one of the reasons why we're craving food and craving sugar, that no matter how much willpower we have, we are still going to have those cravings. And there's no mental strength that will ever undo that. What about if our relationship to ourselves and how we treat ourselves had an impact on the food choice we do? What about if our food obsession, particularly in an environment where we are labeling ourselves with a belief around food? Example, vegan community, paleo community, keto community. What about if that constant obsession with food and that restrictive mindset that we had around food and belief that drove those restrictions were actually causing us to binge? Here's another one. Reason number 6. What about if our trauma or emotional despair actually is causing us to crave food? What about if our hormones, particularly our adrenal hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, are actually causing us to have craving and a distorted relationship to food? What does diet will do against that? Pretty much nothing. What about if the stress we live in our day-to-day life and the load of it that we carry nonstop from the moment we wake up with an alarm to the time we go to bed in front of the TV at night, what about if that accumulated stress had serious impact on our body, on our tissue, on our hormones? What would diet do to help us with that? What about if we had developed in our youth or even recently an addiction to food to help us cope with an emotional situation that we couldn't find an answer for? And the only way we found an answer for that was through eating and consequently becoming addicted to food. What would diet do against that? Nothing. We would end up failing like we did, and then blaming ourselves and being ashamed and going back in that circle. Another one that's completely different. Number 10, EMF, Electromagnetic Field. You know that thing you're listening to podcasts in, that it is your iPad, your iPhone, or your Android device that emits vibration and radio frequency? What about if those frequency, those EMF, had an impact on your nervous system or on your hormones? What about if our environment, the toxicity in our environment, had an impact on our body? You heard me talk about many times, particularly for us as women, the type of product we decide to use on our body, on our face, our cosmetics, our skin cream, our shampoo, and how this can have an impact on our health, on our hormones. So if you already are, example, having PCOS or perimenopause and your hormones are already sensitive and you're using toxic product and you're trying to lose weight, meanwhile you have a high level of estrogen in your body because of those products, what would diet do against that? Nothing. What about toxicity? What about if you've been exposed to a lot of toxin all your life and you've not been able to clear it through your body and those toxins are inside of you? What about if your liver is not functioning properly, and I'm using air quote here, so you're not detoxifying? How will diet help you with that? What about if you pass in front of the mirror every morning, and listen very carefully, ladies, and you say negative words against your body? You trash your body because it doesn't look like the way you want it to look, because that's how society told you the way it should look, and you trash yourself every morning. Do you think that has no impact on how you relate to your food and how you're going to make choices later? What about if you're obsessed with the scale? And every time you step on the scale in the morning, that dictates your level of happiness or unhappiness. Reason number 15. What about if you're using willpower against your craving, but it's actually a mood issue in your brain? What about if you are using medication to regulate that mood issue and it's making matter worse for you and it's creating even more craving? Diet will not work against that. What about if we're over-exercising? What about if we believe, because that's the way we were educated, that no pain, no gain, that if we don't suffer through our workout, we will not be healthy. We will not lose weight. We will not achieve our goal. We need to suffer. And every single day we wake up dreading to go to the gym or going to do the activity that creates the pain inside of us so we can achieve that. What about if all that was wrong and all we needed to do was to move? What about if our relationship to our body and our ability to relate to our body and to feel our body was actually causing us to gain weight? Crazy, right? But think about it. If you trash your body every single time you see your body or you feel your body, will you want to be in your body? And what happened when we're not in our body? Could that be creating craving and binge eating? What about our posture? This is reason number 18. Our posture. Not crazy, I know. For a lot of you, you're like, what the heck has my posture got to do with my weight and dieting? Well, guess what? There's actually a lot of influence of how you carry yourself, how you stack your spine, whatever you're seated, whatever you are standing up, and how that impact actually the organs in your body, which will then impact your hormones, which will then impact your mood, which will then impact the way you perceive food as soothing. I know, crazy, right? We talked about the energetic of weight loss in a prior podcast, right? So weight management was never an issue up until recently, as we saw in the stat that I talked about earlier. But what did our ancestor do in regards to weight management? Well, first of all, our ancestor didn't have a weight management issue because they just lived life. So there has to be a way into which we can relate to our weight without dieting in a different manner. And that lies within the energetic of weight loss. And a lot of old culture can teach us a lot about that. And the last big reason is life experience. And case studies have proven that diet doesn't work. And that's why I'm talking about it today. And there is a lot of people that you follow on social media that have a story that demonstrate that weight loss management technique like diet don't work. But they're actually not welcome in talking about that because it's not the right environment for them to do that, or they're just starting to do that. Well, I've invited a lot of those people to collaborate with me on the Going to Beyond the Food project, which I talked at the beginning of the podcast. And I'm just going to name two people to which have become case study for me, that have opened their heart, opened their life, and shared with me in an interview that will be shared with you in the Going to Beyond the Food project. Two leader in the keto community, which is the most trendy diet right now that we have, is the ketogenic diet. So two of those leaders have come forward to be transparent enough to share their own story and how they had to go beyond the food to resolve the imbalance in their body and the reason why their body was not releasing weight. And those two leaders are Leanne Vogel and Kristen Kerb from Castaway Kitchen. So those 21 reasons that I just spent the last 14 minutes and 26 seconds talking to you about are actually what is the driving force behind the Going to Beyond the Food project, this online conference that I've created for you, the listener of the podcast, to help you move beyond the food and see what nobody else talks about. Nobody else talks about EMF or posture or food addiction as a solution for you to naturally manage your weight and get out of that distorted relationship to food. And that's what I'm offering to you, and I'm inviting you to join me to take this adventure with the speakers, with the people like Leanne and Christina that share their story, and to be inspired to ditch the diet mindset because it doesn't work. I mean, I've listed you 21 reasons why it doesn't work and why just counting calories and macro doesn't work. And we need to look in those other 21 reasons. So I'm going to provide you this platform of education and awareness for you to then step into your responsibility and look at solution that fits you, because we're all individual. Not all those 21 reasons apply to everyone. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 that you need to look into. But to know if that is you, you need to be able to understand and be exposed to that information, and your intuition will tell you if that's something you need to look into. So I can't wait to have you join us on this adventure. You can register with the link in the show notes, or you can also go to goingbeyondthefood.com/register, and you can register right there. But what I'm asking you before we end the show here is that you help me. I'm giving you all this information today in the last 98 episode of the podcast, but I have an ask for you right now. It's really important that you help me share this information, because let's face it, this is not going to make it at the top of the evening news. The Going to Beyond the Food conference is not going to make it on the headline of the newspaper or in Facebook, because that's not part of the weight loss in the fitness industry strategies. It's not a big business that has a lot of money behind it. So you need to help me share this podcast, share it on your social media, send an email to all your girlfriend that needs to hear this message. We need to do what we call the grassroots movement of sharing this information with the world, so we can get more women particularly exposed to this information, which I believe, when I heard about this information 5 years ago, I was mad that nobody has ever told me this. And that's probably the same thing for you. So I'm going to stop ranting about this, but please share this information with as many people as you can. And we have a great episode coming on Sunday. Sunday, we have one of the speakers from the Going to Beyond the Food project, the online conference, Dr. Carolyn Ross. And we're going to talk about, ready? Binge eating. And she does not have the traditional approach to binge eating, nor does she have the traditional definition of binge eating. Binge eating is not for people that are diagnosed with binge eating disorder. We can be binge eater. I am a binge eater, and I'm not diagnosed by a psychiatrist. I just have binge eating behavior. So I highly invite you to at least listen to see if that's you and how you can move forward in binge eating. And hopefully that will help you. I'm grateful that you were here with me right to the end, and I'll see you and talk with you on Sunday with Dr. Carolyn Ross to talk about binge eating. I love you guys.